قد أشرقت الدنيا من نور حمايانا البدر غدا ساقي والكأس ثريانا.
Hey my humans, so this was actually found a year to a year and a half ago. It's interesting how the quality of filming can change within that brief span of time. I know also that this video is long. I didn't want to cut out too much because it has such a great wealth of knowledge, background of Rumi, so if you really enjoy Rumi and history, please check this video out. But if you want to cut to the actual poetry in Arabic and English and better quality, go to the last roughly 18 minutes of the video and check that out. Otherwise, I will see you guys next week with some local poetry at an open mic. So yeah, take it away, past Tricia. Hey, what's up my humans? This is Tricia with the Truth, and you are the truth. Today I am going to some Baha'i's house and going to hear some of Rumi's poems that have never been translated into English from Arabic, is what I hear. But I will confirm that with you later. So if you like Rumi, stay tuned.
Maybe a couple of his Arabic poems are translated into English. And I was coming from the Middle East, from a Sunni context. I was familiar with Rumi as an Arab scholar, but Rumi is really not that famous in the Arab world. It became more famous by the from the people who came to the West and understood better who Rumi is and what he has to offer because of the narrow approach to understanding religion in certain parts of the Arab world, especially within the Sunni world, where they see him as part, even though he's not really Shia, but they see him as part of a movement that kind of crosses the line between what is considered a Sirat al-Mustaqim, the straight path, and what is considered additional things that are really not within the mainstream Islam. Some scholars who are writing because I am Persian, so I'm kind of almost accepted to the Persian. I'm saying almost because I speak Arabic, and that kind of make me not fully accepted for Persian. But I'm Iranian, and I'm very Iranian. I come from my original heritage is Zoroastrian, so that's as Iranian as you come for Iranians. So they cannot say I'm not Iranian. They cannot dismiss my presence as Iranian. So I can speak about it. And so that gave me access to talk to them about Rumi, and I found out that most of the research have said that Rumi, the Arabic poems of Rumi, they dismiss the Arabic poems of Rumi. Like a lot of the people who are very, very familiar with Rumi work, through bards and through others, they don't know that Rumi wrote in Arabic. By the way, just a little statistics. Probably there is about 45 scholars and poets who translated Rumi work from Persian. Out of those, only very few speak Persian. Many of the people do not speak Persian, they translate from translation. Some of them, more people who are really caring about the authenticity of it, they have sometimes the help of translators that explain it to them. And so there's all of those little facts that are coming together that kind of making me understand part of this new perception of this new persona that is created in the West that is very different than from what I have, like reading the original text, have understood Rumi to be. So, this is another thing for people who are in scholarship too. The Rumi field, the Rumi as an academic field is very well guarded. There are gatekeepers for the Rumi academic field, and you have to be a certain type of, Persian scholar, or, even Islamic scholars try to kind of get into it and with difficulty. So being from the Arabic field, I'm not a Persianist. So I just took the Arabic poems of Rumi, I looked at them, I read the research that says that they're not as strong as the Persian poems, and they most of the time been dismissed, and I was like, that's not what I read as an Arabist. So I decided to, okay, well, what's the big deal? Then I can translate it and put it in a book, and then they could see that it's really as good. So the book came out, and it was picked by Oprah. I have no clue how Oprah picked the book. Oprah picked the book, and she listed it in February of 2015, like the same month it came out, as one of the 10 best books to read.
Oh, wow.
So they had to notice it. Rumi have been doing crazy stuff with this book since it came out, which we had nothing to do with it. So it was very interesting, and the reason for putting the book together is I felt like really if people want to know Rumi, they need to understand where Rumi is coming from. And partially Rumi, especially through the Arabic poems, you will see that Rumi's work in Arabic, and this could be a part of the reason why the Iranian scholars who were not very, they can't read Arabic, but they are really not. This is a very difficult language. His Arabic poems are very difficult. They are full of Islamic verses and Islamic references. So, for example, there is a certain way a verb or a noun used in the Quran that is not common in everyday talk or even in the literature, and you have to both understand the Quran and understand Arabic very well and understand traditional Arabic, because Rumi was an Islamic scholar, and he actually was already a very prominent teacher with followers. But he was a scholar of knowledge and jurisprudence. And he had a Turmudi, when his father passed away, his father appointed this Islamic scholar with Sufi background to be his guide and his teacher, Turmudi. And he started kind of working with him and enlightening him about the tariqah. But Rumi was a technical scholar at that point. But he was extremely intelligent, and his heart was open and things. And then Shamsuddin Tabrizi, who was a Darwish, who was a Sufi known Persian Darwish, who was wandering around looking for somebody who was worth learning the art of love. Because the art of love was the art of the path of the spirit, which Rumi did not really have. So he had the knowledge at that point, but he did not have the enlightenment that opens your soul and does all kind of things for you. And there's a little cute story about how Rumi met Shams Tabrizi, and from the first sight that. From the first time they saw each other in the souk, they recognized each other's spiritual companionship. Have you ever been someplace and like you never met, like you're walking in a mall or you're walking in an airport and you look around and you feel somebody's presence around you and you feel like you really know them? And maybe this is, perhaps if we want to get a little bit spiritual here, perhaps our soul can recognize other souls. So perhaps there is a level of communication that we really are not familiar with in our physical presence. And maybe that is part of what religion is. It's this connection between the souls that are part of this whole power of a divine, that we are part of this, incredible divine. We have little of his essence, and we can recognize that essence in each other. Maybe that's what religion is about. Maybe that's what people found in Rumi and fell in love with. But this connection is what Shams Tabrizi and Rumi found in each other. But it was more than that. It was a soul that is guiding another soul toward the path of enlightenment. So what is the path of enlightenment? In the Baha'i faith, somebody asked me if we believe in Sufism as Baha'i. It depends. If it is a practice of Sufism as per the dhikr and the dances and stuff like that, we are not Sufis. But we believe in the same essence of Sufism, which is the journey of the soul. Because Baha'u'llah wrote also the 7 valleys, which is the valleys in which the soul journeys in search of God, in search of reunion with God, in search of the obliteration of the self in the presence of God. And one of the second valley of the 7 valleys is the valley of love. So I have been looking at what Rumi wrote and finding all of these little aspects that we have in the Baha'i faith very clear in his poetry that is in Farsi, which I can read, and especially in his Arabic poetry, which is very, very infused with his principles of religion and his understanding of faith. So what is the path of love? Path of love? Because, you know, in our religions, in Christianity, Christ was the essence of love, right? And in Islam, it's very interesting because depending on the sects of Islam, there is more emphasis on that versus on the al-batin wal-zahir. So we have the inner and the outer aspects of understanding the religion. So some religions are more into focusing and searching for the love, like Sufism, like, you know, the other different tariqah, and others are more into applying the law and the hudud and the practices and things like that. So, so as we see, you know, Rumi's true journey of enlightenment started from him experiencing love. And that experience of love came through his love to Shams Tabrizi and that first sight relationship that started with them. And then he became so overwhelmed and overtaken by that he would like lock himself up with Shams Tabrizi and sit there with him for days and not come out. And his students, so he had followers. So then you come to the politics of religion. So he had all of those followers, and those followers became jealous and became frustrated of, why are you taking our teacher from us? And Persians and, you know, Persians, Turks, whatever Rumi, Afghanis, whatever Rumi puts in the scheme of things, these scholars, they were pretty much class-oriented. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Rumi was a little dervish who came with his ragged clothes and, you know, walked around and decided he comes into this town and he takes over the life of this master, their master, and he becomes his student, and he very openly declares that I am here, and then he started. So it wasn't like, Rumi didn't go and said, well, I am now enlightened, let me write poetry. That's not how it went. But part of this whole experience of love is also the pain that comes with love. So, I mean, how many have been in love and have suffered from the agony of the pain of love? It's a spiritual experience. It's something not physical and have physical manifestations. And Arabs within Islamic culture have extensively wrote about the whole concept of love and then this whole relationship between physical and spiritual. So people think that, you know, there were various interpretations of the poetry of Rumi. So everybody reads in it whatever they want to read in it. So, you know, when it comes to gender issues, you know, or same gender relationships, certain people read that into it. Other people read, so there's so many different readings into it. And that's because we bring whatever we want to bring into making him part of our group. Mm-hmm. So we can take that. You know, everybody recognizes this power of love, but then they want to make it their own. Categorize it so they can belong to it without having to recognize anything else they don't want to recognize. That is so contradicting to the whole concept of pure love and this spirituality of, you know, in touch with the divine. Because when God created us, we as Baha'is believe, He created our soul that is like raceless and genderless. The soul is not black or white or, you know, American Indian or anything. The soul is the soul, is the third thing. And it is not male or female, it's gender. So that's not exactly fits with feminist theories or with, you know, progressive gender equality. I mean, it doesn't fit in where we want it to fit. And the biggest challenge that I felt from my conversation with a lot of my Western friends who are Rumi fanatics is they love Rumi because Rumi, you know, one of the most quoted verses of Rumi is that he said that I am not Muslim and I'm not this, I am, the child of God. But I'm all of them together. Well, he understood himself being all of them together. But if you look at his Arabic poems, you will see his discourse is an Islamic discourse. It is fully Islamic discourse. It is really not fair to him or to Islam for us to take him out of the context of Islam. And that is what, we meant to do with the translation of his Arabic poems, is to put him where he belonged within that context. And also, he was a leading figure within Islamic Sufism, but he really did not invent Sufism. Rumi did not invent the discourse of love. This discourse of love have been there from the beginning of Islam, from actually the early Islamic period, and the Sufis partially were kind of a reaction to politicizing Islam, where these pious Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet, wanted to be, wanted to really kind of take themselves away from this whole political movement that was tearing Islam even from the early periods over politics apart, and they wanted to keep it pure. But then there were successive scholars, Islamic scholars, who wanted to look at al-batin, the inner aspects of the self and its relationship with the divine. But then how many of you heard of an Arab poetess, probably guys, Rabi' al-Adawiyya?
Yes.
So who is Rabi' al-Adawiyya? So Rabi' al-Adawiyya is a poor woman who was sold into slavery and was oppressed, served as prostitute, and she had an enlightenment vision, and she decided that nobody in earth is worth her affection except God, and she became totally devoted to the divine. But because of her background, her poetry, so she wrote incredible poetry in Arabic, incredible poetry. And she is considered the mother of the Sufi movement to a large degree, in addition to the other. But she is the one who created the discourse of Sufism. So the concept of wine and of the physical, the physicality that you see in the poems did not come from Rumi. This is a language that was already used extensively before Rumi and was brought in by this woman who knew what physical relationship is. And she took that physical relationship, and because that's her language, she applied it on the divine. So the poems that Rabi' al-Adawiyya taught are very erotic, and it uses imagery from physical encounters between people, and that kind of became the standard for writing poetry. So when we see writing this, using these images to express the love for the divine, so we see a lot of erotic words and images, even when translated. When people try to clean them in translation, they are very erotic in Arabic, and they are very erotic in Persian. But it depends on who's translating, how can you massage it for the taste of the target language and the target audience. But that's where it came from, and that's why it's erotic. And it's not really foreign, because we have, if people wonder, you're familiar with the Song of Songs in the Bible, right?
Yeah.
And the physicality of that. And many of the Western scholars kind of like try to understand that and wondering what is going on here, but that's the language of the time. That's how people expressed love, in the way that they understood the physical love, and then they applied it for the divine. So that's where Rumi comes from, and that's where Rumi continued to be in the tradition. He was influenced also to a large degree, in addition to the masters that he became, the guides that he became their students after the passing of his father. He also was influenced by Persian Sufi scholars, poets like Attar. For example, there's a story that says, and many of those Sufi scholars were his contemporary. He deviated from them in one thing. Many of them, other than Attar, like Ibn Arabi and others, they were interested in understanding love and understanding divine and understanding the relationship between, the human and the divine. And Rumi went in the other, which is similar to Attar's doctrine, where he said, no, the mind comes between us and the divine, and that eternal love for the divine, because it prevents us from allowing ourselves to lose ourselves in love. So, does this make sense for you guys? Is this where you want this conversation to go tonight? All right. So, so we have this. So, yes, we all love Rumi because Rumi understood what Jesus Christ talked about, what Moses talked about before, what Buddha talked about, what Zoroaster talked about, what Krishna talked about, what all of those manifestations of God talked about, which is the essence of our soul and the relationship of our soul to the divine, and this path of search that starts with search and then gets to different stages until we really allow ourselves to get rid of our ego, our own personal selves, and allow our spirit to become glorious and brilliant and then worthy of this unification, connection, whatever you want to see it as, but this communication with the divine. So when Shams Tabrizi, this is probably, I imagine this is the kind of conversation he had with him. He's like, hey, so Shams, Rumi chose all of his knowledge trying to impress Shams Tabrizi, and Shams Tabrizi tell him, unless you get rid of all of that, you're not going to get anywhere. So your first lesson is to find something more important than this cumulative knowledge that's your power and your energy and your prestige and what gives you the status. So you have to become like me, nothing, nobody, and then maybe you become worthy to allow your soul to recognize that. And he reckoned, because he loved Shams Tabrizi. So
you're speaking of Shem?
Shams.
Yeah, Shams.
Yes, Shams Tabrizi. Do you know what Shams means?
Tell us.
Sun.
Son.
The son of Tabriz.
That's right.
So, and then there is so much references in Islam for the sun and the moon and the planets orbiting the sun and the sun being the center of knowledge and the center of life and stuff like that. So this experience that that Rumi had with Shams was full of agony, because part of the purpose of this love is to help you to get rid of the self. And to get rid of the self, this is a constant fight with the self. And then you have to love somebody so much that you can sacrifice yourself for that. And then the closer he becomes to Shams, then Shams leaves. There is different theories about why Shams left. Some said because he leaves the first time, and then his son, then Rumi goes crazy and start writing poetry. So Rumi did not write poetry. Rumi was not a poet. He did not just sit there and write poetry and correct. He was flooding with poetry. And if you read his Arabic poetry, you will see that he did not go back and edit his poetry, because what he did is his spirit was just getting overwhelmed and flooding with all of these feelings and all of this emotion in his journey to his divine, that he would just pouring it out. And then his student asked him permission to write it down, and he wrote it down. And it's very interesting, because this is pretty technical, but when translating the Arabic poems of Rumi from the Diwan Shams Tabrizi, finding all kind of things that could shed a light on how did he construct? I mean, we have a theory now that he constructed the Arabic poems and he had memorized them. The only thing that was constructed was the Arabic poems that he really actually, because he loved Arabic poetry, but it wasn't his first language. So he had to, like, he was writing it or he was working on it because they come in a form of rubaiyat, and that's not the form that Arabic poetry are usually written. This is a Persian style, so he's using the Persian style to write Arabic poetry. And then it's really fascinating because so the Diwan have 95 poems that are fully in Arabic, out of thousands of poems, and thousands of verses. And he wrote poems where the first half of the line is in Arabic and the second half in Farsi, or the otherwise. And sometimes he would be writing all in Farsi, and then he will insert 2 lines of Arabic. And he has that all through his poem. And those are those poems that have Arabic in them called mulamma'at. Lama'a means glittering, like, something to make it more shiny and glittery. So they call them the mulamma'at because they have this Arabic to them. They were the beads in the poems that enhance the poem. But the fascinating things is I have been taking those lines out of like a very long poem, and I'll take like 2 lines or 4 lines or 9 lines, and they are a full poem in themselves. So either he was a brilliant that he can put a full thought in Arabic and a full, then a whole poem constructed around it in Persian, or he actually have developed those Persian poems, and he would say spontaneously the Persian poems, and then he would insert with him what he had memorized and knew as Arabic poems. So there is a story for him with Arabic. There is actually a long love story. When he was fascinated with the Arabic language. He loved Arabic. And you cannot be an Islamic scholar without knowing Arabic very well, at that time especially. And he also he went to Damascus, right, Ahmad? And he went there and he lived there for a while as per the instruction of his teacher and guide after the passing of his father. And he was crazy about Al-Mutanabbi, who was one of the most technical Arabic pre-Islamic and early Islamic poets. And he used to, like, he had his diwan, we call it diwan, which is collection of poems, and he used to sleep with it and read it all the time. And Shaykh Tabrizi, that was a competition for it. This is my interpretation. But Shaykh Tabrizi did not like that. Gomard has a great website in which he, talks in details about his relationship with Arabic poetry. But we see him incorporating the Arabic poems and taking some of them, sometimes translating them into Farsi and incorporating, and just, to kind of so it doesn't sound like he was plagiarizing all over the place. Plagiarization is a very Western concept. Arabs plagiarize all the time, so they don't call it plagiarization. They're like, we're jealous with our knowledge and we share it, and it's okay, they can borrow it and nobody's suing anybody. So they have serious problems with adhering to, right? To the Western standards of property, because property, that's not how tribes work. No. Everything you have is everybody. And poetry, especially poetry, it was considered a special talent and honor and art to take a couple of lines from a very famous poet and then kind of twist them around and do something with them to make them yours. So that was considered an honor for the poet and recognition. It wasn't plagiarization and I'm going to sue you and we'll see who can make money out of it. So it's a totally different culture. So we see some of Al-Mutanabbi poets kind of incorporated within Rumi poems without little asterisk saying, this is from Al-Mutanabbi's Diwan page 65 or whatever. So we see this. So his relationship with the Arabic language and Arabic poems have been there, and we see them. And like I said, I have a theory about even them being more important for him than his Persian poems because they were very strongly, carefully constructed. Now in the research, we see that most Persian scholars who are people who wrote about Rumi and American scholars from Persian orientation, say that Rumi's Arabic poems are weak. They are not as well constructed as the Persian poems, and I disagree. I'm going to read for you some of the Arabic poems, and maybe I can have you guys read the English poems. فاض السكر في قومي فأسرع واسقني خمرا حميرة تشبه العندم.
Oh,
She knows Arabic?
Yes.
It's different.
No.
Really?
what did you hear
It's a
there?
rhyme.
Oh boy. What struck you? Okay, I was working as a news editor in the TV in Egypt, in South Korea, and in Baghdad. So one of my programs, I was a program producer, is about the literature, Arabic literature. Yeah.
Nice. We should get you to the call to come to talk to my students.
Yeah.
So the secret of love. So we can discuss this content. So first I picked a few poems to kind of illustrate certain aspects of the way Rumi saw love. So the secret of love, and you heard the poetic part of it. I'm going to do the literal translation of it. So he says that the love, and this is another part. In Arabic, in English, you have a word love, right? So that's love, right? We have like Ahmed, right? We have at least 65 words in
Same
Arabic
meaning of love.
of love.
Really?
Yeah.
60. This is the ones that we have records of.
Yeah.
There is much more.
More.
So basically, how could you do love in 65 ways? What Arabs do. They actually, Arabs have a whole science called the science of love and sex. It's called ilm al-bah. And that's a field that have categories, that have literature, that have medicines, that have everything you could think of, that have science that goes with it. So this is started. Actually, there is a manual of love. There is different manuals of love. There is a manual of virgin love. Tawq al-Hamama by Ibn Hazm, an Andalusian Muslim scholar. And it's very interesting. Most of the people who wrote in the science of love were Islamic scholars.
Yep.
Because Islam never really came to kind of dismiss love. It came to canonize love. So it put it within regulations. And the people who were the keepers and the interpreters of those regulations were Muslim scholars. So while Ibn Hazm wrote some of the most incredible Islamic treaties, he also wrote a manual. And the 13th century was the century of 12th, 13th, 11th, 12th, 13th centuries in Arab history, where the time when they wrote manuals for everything, and everything included love. So there was a manual of virgin love.
You have missed your goal. He calls, the breeze of love must find your soul. Glory resurrected you. Glory made you whole. If you're not in love, love has passed you by.
حاليا نادى نسيم عشقك في أنفس الورى أحياكم جلاليا جل جلاليا الحب والغرام أصول حياتكم قد خاب من يظل في الحب ساليا. Yeah? So it is, and here within this poem he uses ishq, he uses hub, and he uses gharam. So there is 3 words for love, each of them in a different scale have various implications. So
How do you, when you translate that into English, what do you do with all of that?
if it was left to me, I want to translate it word to word. So, okay, the story of our translation of the Rumi poems. I have a very good friend, his name is Anthony Lee, and he have worked with another Persian translator who translated Persian poems into Rumi poems from Persian into English. And he is, seriously, he is a Rumi fanatic. I could show you my text messages. I got a text message from him the other day, and he says, I really need this to serve. I need you to send me another poem to translate to Servani. So basically, so I translated one of we talked about it, and he was very, very excited. And for me, I'm very protective of the Arabic. I want to bring the Arabic, because I do translation, and we have about 4 or 5 books that have been published in translating like literature and novels and other things. And for me, the authenticity of keeping the spirit and the tone and the intention of the writer is very essential for me. So how can you do that and take a qasida, which is very structured poem, and break it down to make it in a very complicated language that have syntax that English cannot even start envisioning or imagining, and and you could do all kind of thing with a verb and turn it to nouns and stuff like that, and then take it to a language like English, which is very straightforward in terms of its technicality. So it is really very hard. So what we did, so he wanted to make it a poem. So his goal is to make the poem into an English poem, and my goal is to keep it authentic. And so we spent. That's why I don't want to start a poem with him, because that's just the beginning. So when I translated word by word first. I also then give him the meaning. So my script for like 4 lines is probably 3-4 pages, because I'm explaining, because he does not speak a word of Arabic, and I will talk about the advantage of that. So he takes it and then he makes it a poem, and then I break it. So he makes it a poem, I break it. So we spend like at least 10-15 times going back and forward. He fixed the poem, I change the words, I break it, he fixed it again, he sent it back to me, and we do that back and forth till we both are happy with it. And sometimes you have to, you move lines, you do all kind of things to make it really sound. And I am really impressed with how in tune he is to Rumi. He can hear Rumi's voice. He can see, even though he doesn't speak a word of Arabic, he is a poet. I am not a poet. I'm a translator.
My heart roasts in love's fire on a spit. Forget me then, and I will learn the way. No, without you, I'll always go astray.
So it is that fire, and this is what he says in Arabic. أمسي وأصبح بالجوى أتعذب قلبي على نار الهوى يتقلب إن كنت تهجرني تهذبني به أنت النهي وبلاك لا أتهذب. There is more to the poem.
How long will your hard heart keep me grieving? I cry and blame myself for your leaving. I beg my life be sacrificed for you. You are my life. Without you, I am dead. You say I should use patience as my balm? No, don't think that my love can be that calm. I couldn't stand your loss for one moment if I didn't think you'd return each dawn.
أمسي وأصبح بالجوى أتعذب قلبي على نار الهوى يتقلب إن كنت تهجرني تهذبني به أنت النهي وبلاك لا أتهذب ما بال قلبك قد قسى فإلى متى أبكي ومما قد جرى أتعتب مما أحب بأن أقول فديتكم أحيا بكم وقتيلكم يتقلب وأشرتم بالصبر لي متسليا ما هكذا عشقي به لا تحسبوا ما عشت في هذا الفراق سويعة لولا لقاؤك كل يوم أرقب. So that's how it sounds in Arabic. Much and allow the divine love to flow through us and make us whole. This will not be achieved without sacrifices and letting go of all our attachment. It is a path. When you are there, it is salvation. So we travel in it when we get to it. This is one of the poems that kind of illustrated this for me. Who would like to read? Ahmed, you reading or are you giving somebody else to read? Poem? There will be blood.
Where there is love, nearby there will be blood. Love will not spare father and not son, but death is everlasting life with you. Poverty is the jewel your love is won. Come with me now. Come on the path of love. Don't be afraid of sin or prying eyes. Don't worry that you may be far from home. Come, find union. Salvation is the prize. The magic breeze that stirred man's first passion now gives his lover strength and calms their lives.
What's the last line?
The magic breeze that stirred man's...
That magic breeze.
Oh, that magic breeze that stirred man's first passion now gives his lover strength and calms their lives.
So it is the turmoil, and then you get to the knowledge, and then you get to the, so you have to go through this purification, but then when you have it, you don't care about death. Death becomes salvation, because this is the very Arab, Middle Eastern concept of when you die, you live. So this is how it is in Arabic. يحرق العشق دماء حقنت ليس للعشق قريب وولد لكن الموت حياة لكم لكن الفقر فناء ورغد سافروا في سبيل العشق معي لا تخافن ظلالا ورصد لا يهولنكم بعدكم دونكم وفد وصال ومدد فنسيم طرب أولهم يهب المالك حولا وجلد. One more poem. So it is this intoxication with the wine. So there is the wine, the death, the sun, the resurrection, the stars. There is these concepts and imageries that the wine, the person who pours the wine.
The waiter?
No, Astaqi. So this is happening, and this is a journey that takes all of us together in it. And the light of this intoxicating loves reveal the hidden and light the face of the sky. So it is a love that comes from inside, unite with other divine in each one of us, and then unite us to the divine, the major divine that we all belong to. And so read the last poem. So قد أشرقت الدنيا من نور حمايانا البدر غدا ساقي والكأس ثريانا الصبوة إيماني والخلوة بستاني والمشجر ندماني والورد محيانا من كان له عشق فالمجلس مثواه من كان له عقل إياه وإيانا من ضاق به دار أو أعطشه نار تهديه إلى عين يسترجع ريانا من ليس له عين يستبصر عن غيب فليأتي على شوق في خدمة مولانا يا دهر سوى صدر شمس الدين تبريز هل أبصر في الدنيا إنسان كإنسانا طوبى لك يا مهدي قد دبت من الجهد أعرضت عن السورة كي تدرك معنانا من كان له هم يفنيه ويرديه فليشرب وليسكر من قهوة مولانا.
Your wine lights the world. The light of your pure wine will save the world. Full moon, wine in your cup and stars unfurled. Love is my faith, solitude my station, trees my companions, and flowers my friends. If you're in love, join the congregation. If you still have a mind, then stay away. If you're pressed at home and parched by fire, I'll take you to the secret stream I know. You can drink, satisfy your desire. And if your eyes can't see what's hidden there, just bring your thirst and serve our Messiah. Centuries, look, see the son of Tabriz? Is there another being to admire? Blessed Mahid, you melted in fire. You cast off the form, reach the truth higher. When troubles find you, bring your disaster, drink, get high on the brew of our master.
So it is the river, right? That what you guys were mentioning.
Sounds like a Stevie Wonder song.
I noticed in the Arabic what you were reading was rhyming.
Yes.
Should
yes.
be. Yeah.
In Arabic, it's this is the thing, you know, about Rumi's work. It is very intricate and very technical. So you cannot write like that just because you speak Arabic. And 90% of the people who read Arabic don't get it unless they read it in translation, because the language is very, very classical.
And every poet, when he tried to write the first poem, he needs to know what al-buhur, what al-taf'ila, mafa'ilun, mafa'ilun, mafa'ilu, tafa'ilun, tafa'ilu, tafa. So it's a big story about that. So he couldn't write any poem without studying these things.
Any Arabs, you read this for them, they will tell you, this guy knows Arabic very, very well.
And
Because
the rhythm is very interesting.
oh yeah,
It's a little bit like how difficult it is for an average Midwestern American to understand Shakespeare.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the other interesting thing that again, I hadn't experienced until I went over and visited the Middle East was when we were in Jordan, we went to the Jarish Festival. And literally, you'd have thousands of people sitting in this arena listening to people read poetry. So there's a variety of events at our home.
Hey guys, so this is Nesreen. I want to thank her so much for sharing the poems of Rumi. And so that was correct what I was saying before, that the poems, they're all new. For us English speakers, they've never been translated into English from Arabic. So that's amazing. Thank you.
Welcome. I hope you enjoyed them.
Yay. Hey, so I'm home now. I'm going to sign out. That was a great evening. Learned a lot. Just feeling very, very vibey and holistic and spiritual. Of course, I just love being with a great group of people as well. So I love you, my humans. Bring people together and keep it truthful.